Alright, so Steve Strogatz, the math professor, author of Infinite Powers, says that the reason we have a 10-unit number system is because we have 10 fingers. But if you read David Ewing Duncan's book, Calendar, he talks about how the 10-based rod counting system in India was transferred to China and enabled faster counting. But in China, they use less words for counting, so they can count actually at a faster rate than in English or in Latin especially. And so then David Ewing Duncan points out that if you try to subtract the lunar calendar from the solar calendar using Roman numerals, then it's extremely difficult to do the math. And the same was true for the ideograms or pictograms of right brain dominant language that used a 60-based number system, and with the number 12 as the main foundation and not 10. And so when Strogatz says that we have a 10-based number system because of 10 fingers, what this is covering up is the fact that actually as Professor Michael from Australia, I'll think of his name in a little bit, but essentially the reason we use left brain dominant language is because we are right hand dominant for using tools. And so at first, as primates, we communicated with gesture with our hands. And this is why scientists claim that Coco, the gorilla, can't talk, because supposedly she was not using the proper syntax, because science defines human language as having a recursive syntax based on a symmetric set theory of a hierarchy or network of syntax as meaning. But in fact, if you watch the documentary on Coco, she really did communicate with humans. It's just that it was more on a emotional level, and so it's what Gregory Bateson called a syllogism of metaphor. And so and so when we try to claim that 10 fingers is the basis for our 10-unit counting system, we're ignoring the inherent asymmetry of time, because biological evolution relies on asymmetry of time with left-handed amino acids and right brain dominant perception in ecology. And so therefore the 10 base number system, as anthropology professor Jack Weatherford points out, was originally used to coin money by the Greeks. And so then money became defined as an infinite irrational number system that was disconnected from physical ecology. And so then when in the Victorian age in England for banking, when they discovered that languages, when Greek was converted to Egyptian and they discovered that languages could be right brain dominant, this challenged the idea of the phonetic language as being the true definition of infinity. And so they had to try to define money as a mathematical infinity that was tied to the alpha and the omega of phonetic language being left brain dominant. And so this is tied to the solar calendar directly, because when you subtract the lunar calendar from the solar calendar, then you want to be using phonetic base numbers as the rod number system, and then use 0 as a negative infinity with the materialistic idealism. And so then Plato defined unit, the one, as a symmetric counting system, as a Platonic ideal, so that the direction of number no longer mattered, and therefore time could be reduced to a symmetric geometric magnitude. And Aristotle was against this because he said that the direction of light changes the direction of time, and so that without light you don't have time, and therefore time is an infinite potential that inherently has direction to it, whereas Plato argued that number was an inherent symmetry that had no direction, and this was the Platonic ideal that he called two-ness. And so just as we have two eyes or two hands or 2 feet, he argued that inherently reality has to be symmetric. But he was ignoring the fact that when we listen to sound with the right and left ear, then the phase coherence as frequency and time is based on the octave, as 2 being the Pythagorean noncommutative phase, so that 2 in one direction as 2/3 is a seed to F perfect fifth as a undertone, whereas 2 3/2 as C to G overtone is also a perfect fifth, and therefore the pitch is inherently asymmetric, and so time not only has a direction, but it's eternal motion. And this was the argument between the Buddhists and the Vedic Brahmins about the eclipse of the sun by the moon, was that the ring of fire of light was either defined as a materialistic one or as a wholeness that could not be defined by a materialistic number, or else as 0 so that sunyata originally was the void that was a infinite potential as that wasn't materialistic, whereas zero for the Babylonians and the Vedic Indians then became just a place notation that was materialistic. And then this was debated in Europe until it was the basis for the geometrical irrational numbers system that started with Archytas and Plato and Eudoxus, and then was rediscovered by Simon Stevin doing logarithms from music theory, so that he argued that the major third music interval of 5/4 was actually the just the cube root of 2, and so it could symmetrically split the octave, and therefore the natural numbers as consonants were not needed from Pythagoras. And that time, once again, just as Archytas and Plato argued, could just be a logarithmic symmetry of the 2, so that the octave as 2 is inherently defined as a geometric mean squared. And this was from Babylonian mathematics, so that the arithmetic mean plus the or times the harmonic mean equals the geometric mean squared. So as long as a person isn't relying on listening to define reality, then it can be covered up that the inherent 1 as the unit for is actually a 12 number based system that's right brain dominant, because when we listen to the source of the 1, then we inherently have both the undertones and overtones at the same time as noncommutative phase. And therefore it's not, the 10-base number system is actually a scam that covers up the inherent asymmetry of time as eternal growth, as alchemy.